chapter 17. Luke chapter 17 and verse 26. If you found it, say amen. Not enough of you said amen, so I'll wait just a moment. Okay. Verse 26 says, "And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. They did eat, they drank, they married wives. They were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise also as it was in the days of Lot. They did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. But the same day," I want you to notice that, "the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed." One day, all of a sudden, things changed. In one day, their world forever changed. I'd like to preach to you on the end of the engagement. The end of the engagement. Father, we thank you for your word and the privilege to be in your house tonight. And I thank you for every individual that's under the sound of our voice. And I pray that you would speak to us. I pray that you would draw us by your grace and your power for your glory. Anoint these lips of clay, that I could share your word and that you would draw us. In your name we pray, amen. God bless you as you're seated. Don't let me forget to mention Sister Janine. It's great to see her. Sister Janine Niswonger here with us. We had a wonderful time in Zambia. I had a new appreciation for Sister Janine when we got through. She's just a natural. She just took off and hit it. In a couple of days, Zach will no longer be engaged. Tonight he is engaged. Friday night by this time, should the Lord be our helper, unless the trumpet sound. Actually, this thought came to mind the other night when I turned and looked at him and said, should the Lord tarry? Because we are looking and listening for the sound of the trumpet. 9 of us are. And when that happens, the church will change positions. The church was a temporary name that has been given to the ultimate name, which is the bride of Christ. See, the engagement is not supposed to last forever. Woo, I got 4 people that's going to get with me tonight. I'm preaching to you on the end of the engagement. It's not always going to be like this. I remember years ago in the late 1900s, I was dating a girl. I was living in Missouri, and I was dating a girl in Denton, Texas. And she said, I don't think it's ever going to get here. I said, it's going to get here. And then I'd say, I don't think it's ever going to get here. And she'd say, it's going to get here. And I remember the night before driving, as soon as I got off work, I left. I worked second shift. I left when I got off work. I grabbed one of my groomsmen and I drove all night long and I never batted an eye. I remember the next morning, Sister Snow was working at First State Bank. She was working in bookkeeping, I believe, on the 4th floor, and I walked in and surprised her. When I walked in and I surprised her, she come up to the front desk because they said, there's somebody here to see, it's asking for you. And she turned around and she come walking. And I remember reaching out and grabbing hold. And I remember Doretha, I think was her name, was her boss. Is that true? Yeah, praise God. She come walking around the corner and she said, honey, you might as well just leave and go on home. You're not going to be worth nothing the rest of the day. And she left, and it was still a couple of days. We were still getting things ready. I'm telling you, but on a Friday night, I went from being engaged to being the groom. Now, the fact of the matter is the term church on earth was never intended to be forever, indefinitely. The plans from the beginning of time was for there to be a removal from the church, from this status to the bride status, forever and ever and ever to be with the Lord. Now, it's hard for us to imagine. It's hard for us to grab a hold of the concept that on this planet there would be no church. But I'm telling you, the days for the church, they are far more that are behind us than the few moments that are ahead of us. For at any moment, the church is going to be caught out of here, and its name is going to be changed from the church to the bride. See, right now, Erica is engaged. Friday night, her life's going to change. Her status is going to change. There are things in her life she's going to find out a few. I mean, there are wonderful things that are ahead. Now listen to me. As it was in the days of Noah, the days that it was in Lot, the Bible said here that the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone. I mean, as soon as the church is caught out of here, judgment is headed. What a day! That day for which all other days was made, when the trumpet sounds and the church is raptured and caught out of here, and the presence of God, which abides in the people of God, is forever taken out of this planet. I really don't know if I believe that. Well, I'm going to give you some things to look at. I want you to look at 5 things with me right quick that points to this thing taking place. Number 1 is the reestablishment of Israel. Look at how things have changed for Israel just in the past 90 years. The enemy has done everything he can to destroy God's people. From the very beginning of time, all throughout history, and just that parcel of land that the world is continually fighting for on every side, and fighting for that strip that God said, I'm going to give to my people. And they are going there, they are returning back to Israel, and Israel has not only become established as a nation, but Israel right now, at this very moment, is making plans to rebuild. And God in his sovereignty. Now, Hitler thought, I'm going to take them out, I'll destroy them, but the plan of the enemy was put asunder. Come on now. I said God in his sovereignty has always had his hand, and the reestablishment of Israel that is taking place right now, I'm telling you, God is up to something. And most of the church world is asleep, not seeing what all is taking place. Before we left the last time, I was taken into a place where they are making plans to rebuild the temple. Things are coming together. They're falling in place. Number two, look at the distress of nations. Look at the tension internationally. Look at the tension nationally. North Korea is saying, we're taking you out, Guam. Donald Trump is saying, don't worry, Guam, we got your back. We have tension right now in the United States. Last night, statues of Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson, monuments of the Civil War, was taken. We have marches going on all the time. There's civil unrest. We have those fighting against each other. There's a spirit that is continually revolting one against the other. And the Antichrist comes with a quote answer of peace. Are y'all hearing me? I'm telling you, everything right now in North and South Sudan, right now in the tension that is going on in Syria, Al Jazeera, all the things that are taking place all the way around us, and the distress of nations. All that is taking place, all it takes is for one man to step up in the United States that has anything to do with the stock market, and all of a sudden, men's hearts begin to fail them with fear. A few years ago, Mr. Greenspan stepped up and said a few words, and the stock market fell 700 and some points that day. And by the end of that week, I was burying people, putting them in the ground because their own family said they come in and sat down in the chair, and their hearts failed them with fear. That is straight out of the Word of God, friend. I'm telling you, this day and age in which we're living in, there's about to be a change. The church is about to move from the engagement status to the bride status. While we are rocked to sleep, while we're going about our own business, while we're running here and there, caught up in the affairs of this life, caught up in the attention of the things that are temporal, when the trumpet is about to sound, the Lord is coming back the same day. The world of Sodom and Gomorrah was changed. The distress of nations. The franc. They're worried about the pound. The word about the yen, the word about the dollar, monetary gains. Let me give you a good piece of history right here. This is straight from May 2017. Let me encourage you. You know how much we owe China? $1.102 trillion. That's how much the United States is indebted to China. 28% of $3.9 trillion in the Treasury bills is owed to China. Over $19.8 trillion, the indebtedness. And yet America just... oh, forget about that. Let's live it up. We're living the high life. Are y'all hearing me? This earth is moaning. Who? Brother Kenny told me, Brother Kenny Sifford told me, he said, I'm so glad you're back from California. He said, because every time they go out there, I keep waiting for an earthquake in California just to fall off. Have y'all been listening to the news lately? We have earthquakes in Texas. We have earthquakes in Oklahoma. We've had more in Oklahoma in the last few years. Oh, it's all this. We're pulling the minerals out, and we're pulling the gases out, and we're pulling all this. And that's what's the cause of all of it. I tell you what it is. This earth is groaning. This earth is quaking. And I'm telling you, friend, I come to bring you some good news. Don't forget about the trillions of dollars that we're in debt. Lift up your head. Your redemption draweth nigh. For the age of the engagement to the lover of our soul, there's just a few days left. Woo! I don't know if you saw Zach when he walked in. Now, if Zach would have come in, he'd been, if Erica would have come in tonight, they come in here, I thought somebody brought in spotlights when they walked through the door. In this very room, just 2 days left. I'm fixing to change. The engagement will be over. I said the process of the engagement will be over. Come on, church. I said the process of the engagement is just about over. If we could see God's calendar, if we could see how much time is left, if we could see how many days are left, I believe somebody in this house would lift up their hands and say, thank God, I'm going to hold on. The trumpet's about to sound. Let me give you another point. Reestablishment of Israel, the distress of nations, lawlessness. Because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 13 talks about evil men that shall wax worse and worse, seducers, drugs, cruelty, the deviation, the manifestation of immorality, the hurting of the innocent, the destroying of children, the violence. In Genesis chapter 6 and verse 13, the violence was so great that God said, I'll destroy the earth. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And Noah was spared, he and his family, by the flood. And the Bible talked about that. But in just 2 chapters later, the darkness was covering the earth again at the Tower of Babel. Listen, the lawlessness that was taking place. I had a friend that I played baseball with in the backyard many times. His name was Scott. I'm going to leave his last name off. Scott grew up on the same street as I did. He wasn't as good at baseball as I was, but he's pretty good. He was a good kid. At the age of 16, got to running with the wrong crowd. Got messed up in drugs. I remember the last time I saw him in the Osho, he had an Impala, an old Chevy Impala, I think a 63 or 64. It was blue. I always wanted Scott's car, sharp. After I went through Bible school, he had quit going to church and he got messed up in drugs and he was selling drugs. He was selling meth. 2 boys came over to his house one night and they said, we've got to have some. He said, well, I don't know where we can get it. And they started to threaten him. So he went out to the provider that had been providing for him outside of Newton County in the country toward H.H. Highway. And they went to his house. And they said, we've got to have some meth. And he said, I'm not selling you any. You owe me some money. They went back to that car. He worked in construction. They reached in and got 3 claw hammers and went back in. And they started beating him. And they turned those hammers over, and that claw hammers. The deputy sheriff of Newton County said it was the most gross murder in the history There was parts of his brain that was stuck to the ceiling as they continued to beat him and left. Teenage boys. He went home. When he realized what he had done, he went in, turned himself in, turned the other two in, and got 20 years. We're living in a day and an age where parents are turning against their children. Children are turning against their parents. They are destroying each other, their own family. It's nothing now to hear of children that are going back into their own home and destroying their own parents. All around us. In 1963, the number one problem in the Dallas schools was chewing gum, talking back to the teacher, and being late to class was the trouble. Now we have guns. That doesn't begin to touch the surface. Why? Because of the severity and the moral decay that is taking place all around us in this lawless society. And now we're standing in a day and an age where the own authorities are the one at question. In our own county the other day, they was questioning the authority, whether the police had the right to go in to a house where children was being abused, where a woman was laying there battered, and they was trying to turn the whole thing around to the place to bring it where that he didn't have the proper right to go in the house. And the officer looked at the judge and said, I was doing my duty to try to protect. Now you hear what I'm saying? We're living in a society where everything is so turned around and everything is so out of place. We're living where everybody has a platform, everybody has their rights, and the world is crumbling all around us. That points to the coming of the Lord. Everybody is doing what is right in their own eyes. Number 4, a breakdown of the marriage. The Bible said they're marrying and giving in marriage. I'm talking to you about the end of the engagement. Hallelujah! It's a pattern. It's one after another. It's 2, 3, 4. They're eating and drinking. Then they're continuing to go right along, and the family is being disintegrated. And there's a falling away like never before. It's strong families that make strong churches. And it's strong churches that make a strong nation. And the enemy is doing his best to destroy the core. I'm telling you, the trumpet is about to sound. I said the end of the engagement is just about over. Last point I want to tell you is not only the reestablishment of Israel, the distress of nations, lawlessness, and the breakdown of the marriage. Revelation 17:17 talks about that great whore. The worldly church. A world system. Everybody is in. Nothing is wrong. Everything goes. The church world in general has become a social club, an entertainment society. Listen, we will never be able to entertain better than Billy Bob's. We'll never be able to entertain better than the Broken Spoke. We'll never be able. We was not designed to be in the entertainment business. But I'm telling you, when all of that's through and all of it's over with, and the show is gone and the flash is gone, when they want something, they got to be able to come to a place where they can sense the divine power and the presence of God through the anointing. Hallelujah. Because it's the anointing that breaks the yoke. It's the anointing that sets people free. You got to know the truth, because the truth is the only thing that'll set you free. And when all of that's over with and all the flash in the pan is gone, thank God, may there be a place where they can get a hold of the presence of God. It's not about the show. But we're living in a day, and those are flocking. Power, wealth, professing one thing, but their position is another. It's a spouse betraying the one she's saying she's engaged to in the name of the church. Listen, it's not about me hating sin. God is the one that spoke against sin. It's not about me not liking the lifestyle. It's about what God has said. It's not about what I think or what you think. It's about what God has said. And if we're planning on going to a holy heaven and being filled with the Holy Ghost, we must stay with the holy Word of God, because no man will see Him without holiness unto the Lord. Well, I don't see it that way. It's not about how you see it. It's not about how I see it. Because we're going to stand before Him. And we're going to give an account. I told you Sunday, you're either going to be known throughout history, either by a name or a number. I'm glad that He wrote my name down in the Lamb's Book of Life. I don't want to be known by a number from the Antichrist. I'm telling you, friend, I want to know that I know that my name is written down. Hallelujah. And I want to know that I, by the help and the grace of God, can keep it there. God's not going to take it out unless I turn and walk away from Him.